In Mazatlán, in September of 2024, a group of armed men walked into a social security clinic and said 5 words to the staff. If they die, you die. That's not a movie line. NBC News reported it. Real clinic, real gunmen, real doctors who went home that night and never told their families what happened. So here's the question nobody in those fictional POV videos ever asks. What is it actually like to be the doctor a criminal empire owns? Not the sicario, not the boss, the doctor. And the real answer is stranger and quieter than the fiction. Here's the part nobody tells you. The most valuable person to a criminal organization isn't the man with the gun. Guns are cheap. Trigger fingers are everywhere. The rare thing, the thing you can't recruit off a street corner, is someone who can pull a bullet out of a lung at 3 a.m. and keep the man breathing till dawn. That person is you. And that's the trap, because a killer can be replaced by tomorrow. You can't. So of everyone in this world, you are the one person they will never, ever let quit. Let me be specific about the keyword because this is the part people misunderstand. When we say criminal empire's private doctor, most people picture a black market surgeon in some hidden clinic doing organ deals. That's the fantasy version. The real version, the one documented by NBC, by NPR, by reporters who actually went to these hospitals, is worse because it happens to normal doctors, people with clinics, people with kids in school. A construction worker with a gunshot wound gets 4 blocks to a hospital. You get a phone call. And that phone call is the beginning of everything. But it gets stranger. Level 1 always looks like a favor. It's late. Your shift is over. Someone bangs on the glass. Or the phone rings with a number you don't know. And there's a man bleeding who can't go to a real hospital. You're told it's just this once. You're told it's an emergency. You're told, quietly, that there's money in it. Picture the actual minute it happens, because it's never a dramatic minute. You're tired. Your hands still smell like the disinfectant from your last real patient. A man is on your table who is very obviously not supposed to be there, and someone in the room is very obviously armed, and the wound is very obviously real, blood soaking through whatever they pressed against it on the drive over. And your brain does the thing brains do. It stops arguing about right and wrong. It just starts solving the problem in front of it. Clamp, clean, close. You're not making a moral decision. You're doing your job on the wrong patient. That's the whole trick. And here's the part that traps good people. At level 1, they're usually right. It usually is just this once. The money is real. Nobody dies. You tell yourself a story, a clean one. I'm a doctor. Someone was hurt. I helped, which is true. That's what makes it work. A regular doctor in Mexico reportedly earns around $3,000 a month. That's a real salary, on the books, taxed, normal. The envelope on the table that night is more than that, sometimes a lot more, and it's cash, and nobody's asking questions. But the money isn't the trap. I need you to understand that. The money is the bait. The trap is something else entirely, and it snaps shut at level 2. Because you did good work. And in this world, good work is the worst thing you can do. It means they'll be back. But it gets stranger. 3 nights later, the phone rings again. And here's the flip that runs this entire video. The gun was never the thing keeping you in. The gun is level 1. Level 2 is the realization that saying yes once made you more useful alive than dead. Think about what you are to them now. You've seen faces, you know a safe house exists, you've treated a wound that a smart cop would ask questions about. You are, in their words, a loose end. Except you're a loose end that's genuinely useful. So they don't cut you, they keep you. And kept is a life sentence with a paycheck. The threats that actually get used aren't dramatic, they're domestic. NBC and Telemundo documented the real script cartels use on doctors, and it's not, "or we'll kill you," it's this. "We're just a few meters from where you live, and you're with your family. If you don't treat this person, we're going to pick you up right here." Notice they don't threaten the doctor, they threaten the commute, the house, the kid's school pickup. Very thoughtful. That's what "you can never quit" actually means. Not that a man is standing over you forever. It's that quitting requires the one thing you gave away at level 1, the ability to say the words, "I don't do this." But it gets stranger. Level 3 is when it stops being a series of emergencies and becomes a job you never applied for. You get a rhythm, certain nights, a number that always comes from a different phone. You start keeping supplies you'd never need for normal patients, the heavy stuff, the trauma stuff. Your clinic quietly becomes an asset on someone else's balance sheet. And this is where I have to be honest about something, because the real reporting is honest about it. Most of the people you treat at this level are not monsters. That's the uncomfortable truth NBC's reporting keeps circling. The same hospitals cartels take over are the only hospitals a lot of poor, uninsured people have. So you patch a Sicario, yes, but you also patch the teenager who got caught in the crossfire, and the mother who can't afford the ER, and the guy who fell off a roof with no insurance. You are, at level 3, doing more actual medicine for desperate people than you ever did in your legitimate practice. And that is the thing that lets you sleep. Not the money, the story that you're still the good guy. But here's what nobody at level 3 lets themselves think about. The same skill that makes you useful makes you a target for everyone, not just the people who own you. Back in 2008, NPR reported that a doctors group in Tijuana counted at least 20 physicians kidnapped in that one border city. Not because those doctors did anything wrong, because kidnappers had figured out something simple and grim. Doctors are visible. Doctors are assumed to be rich. And back then, their names and addresses were sitting right there in the yellow pages. A prominent Tijuana surgeon got taken, and the city's doctors put on their white coats and stood on the steps of the general hospital, begging the government to make it stop. Sit with that image. The white coats on the steps. These are people whose entire profession is control, steady hands, clean decisions, life and death managed by protocol. And they're standing outside, in public, because the one thing they cannot control is the fact that being good at their job painted a target on their back. That means you. The more valuable you make yourself, the more people want to own a piece of you. That's true in a cartel city, and it's quietly true in a normal career too. If that reframe just landed, that the trap isn't fear, it's a story you tell yourself, subscribe. Because the last case in this video is a real one. It went to the US Supreme Court, and it shows exactly where this road ends. Because level 3 feels stable, manageable, almost normal. And almost normal is right before the floor disappears. But it gets stranger. Level 4 is when they stop coming to you and start taking the whole building. This isn't hypothetical, and it isn't rare. In April 2024, a 10-person armed group walked into a private medical center in Cuernavaca and killed a patient lying in intensive care. Later that year, Culiacan General Hospital was hit twice. In Celaya, in the state of Guanajuato, reporters documented wounded traffickers being brought straight into working hospitals. The staff simply told to treat them, or else. At level 4, you're not a private doctor with a dark side gig anymore. You're staff in a building that has been, for the length of one night, annexed. Long guns at the entrance, real patients pushed aside. And you're just the pair of hands that has to make the wounded man on the table live, while the men who brought him watch the door. The horse tranquilizer, back alley clinic version of this story is the one that gets 5 million views. The real version is more boring and much scarier. It happens in a normal hospital, under fluorescent lights, with the paperwork half filled out. Let that sink in. The scariest place isn't the secret lab. It's the ordinary ER on an ordinary Tuesday. So if this is what level 4 looks like, the takeover, the annexation, what's level 5? What's the deepest a doctor can get pulled into this world? For that, I have to tell you about a real man, a real gynecologist, and a price tag of exactly $50,000. But it gets stranger. On April 2nd, 1990, 5 or 6 armed men walked into a doctor's office in Guadalajara and took him. His name was Dr. Humberto Álvarez Machaín. He was a gynecologist. The price paid to the men who grabbed him, exactly $50,000. Here's what makes his case the deepest level of all. Álvarez wasn't accused of just treating criminals. U.S. authorities alleged he had used his medical skill the other direction, that he'd been made to keep a kidnapped DEA agent, Enrique Kiki Camarena, alive and conscious so the torture could go longer. A doctor's entire training is to reduce suffering. The accusation was that a criminal world had inverted him into a tool for the opposite. And then the story flips one more time in a way no fiction would dare. It wasn't the cartel that abducted him in the end. It was the United States. The DEA paid that $50,000 to have him snatched out of Mexico and hauled across the border to stand trial. His case, United States v. Álvarez Machaín, went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court in 1992. The court ruled that yes, a government can grab a man out of another country and still put him on trial. And after all of it, the abduction, the $50,000, the Supreme Court, a judge threw the case out. Insufficient evidence. He was acquitted and sent home. A doctor pulled into the machinery of 2 governments and 1 drug war and spit back out the other side with his life detonated. That's level 5. Not a back alley clinic. A man whose only original sin at the very start might have been a phone call he couldn't refuse. And it ended at the highest court in America. So what is it actually like to be a criminal empire's private doctor? It's not the gun. It's not even the money. It's the slow discovery that the thing that makes you valuable, your skill, your steadiness, your oath to keep people alive, is the exact thing that makes you impossible to release. A killer can be replaced by tomorrow. You can't. And so you stay. That means you, right now, in whatever ordinary job you have. The parts of you that are hardest to replace are the parts a bad system will hold on to the tightest. Value is a kind of cage. Álvarez Machaín learned that with $50,000 and a Supreme Court docket number. Most doctors in this story learn it with a phone that rings at 2 a.m. and a voice that already knows where they live. There was never a door. There was only the next patient, and the one after that, and the quiet growing certainty that you would still be here to save them.